Welcome back to Business AM, and now we're going to take a look at the critical issues that are shaping Kenya's economy. And with me in studio, I have economic analyst Ambrose Wamari. Now, yesterday we looked at Centum selling all its shares to King Beverage. However, it sold it at a loss after 5 years of struggling to make the business profitable. The firm said it had sold the company, which it started in 2014, to Danish Brewing Company for 130 million shillings against the 500 million shillings it had invested in the company, resulting in a 370 million loss. In a statement, Centum made the decision to exit the business, having deployed the internally approved investment amount of approximately 500 million into the business under the import model. Centum has received a total purchase consideration of approximately 130 million shillings, which is a part recovery of the amount invested, where the approximated 370 million losses on investment represents 0.5% of the total assets of Centum. The firm also added that it would in future avoid investing in new ventures or startups and instead go for more mature investments where returns are almost guaranteed. That feels like a painful lesson learned, and clearly, it looks like no one's trying to invest in a startup because they don't have the right standing business capacity or so. But Ambrose, what do you make of this decision by Centum to stop investing in startups? What does this mean for startups, and how is this maybe going to influence other companies going forward? I would like to hear your take on this.
First of all, thank you very much for having me here.
Thanks for coming to the show.
Yes. Now, you know, every business at one point was a startup.
Right.
There's no business that we woke up one day and found that it was already existing. But now, people always have to take chances on businesses because a lot of business don't have their own revenues,
right,
or startup capital, unless you can access this capital either from what we'd call angel investors, people who have been in the industry before, and they would like to hold your hand. And so they would give you a bit of money, but also be in the management,
right,
or what is commonly referred as love capital, which is from family, friends, and relatives. But by and large, a lot of startups don't have access to these pools of capital. So they rely on, if you wish, well-wishers that have seen an opportunity and they would like to come in. Now, what Centum did, first of all, is prudent,
right,
because you are not going to keep a company that is making losses every day and hemorrhaging cash. So
right,
at times, it is better to cut your losses.
right.
Now, the risk of investing in startups, as you've seen, is that there's no guarantee. Because today, even with the best research that we have right now, with the best analytical tools and statistical tools that are available, all those are just variables, as it's almost wishful thinking. So at the end of the day, some of these variables might not check out in the future. And so if you invested today with a given set of variables, they might not be true, say tomorrow, or something can happen, politics, climate change, force of nature, and make these startups to go bust.
Right.
So right now, it is now we are between a hard place and a rock. But you see, if we have to develop, then we have to innovate and invent. And all these are new ideas and new businesses. So there has to be a framework, and this is where also government comes in, tries to encourage, maybe gives tax breaks and other incentives to encourage investments in startups.
Right.
Yes. Also, a lot of startups don't have access because people know the traditional and conventional sources of money, which are the brick and mortar financial institutions. But there's a larger pool out there, you know, the venture capitalist, equity funds. And so there should be a deliberate effort to have a lot of these startups have access to these funds,
Right.
have access to these investors and other alternative sources of funding, so that at the end of the day, they can have a fighting chance.
Ambrose, that has been very well put.
Yes.
What you're trying to say is Centum had to do what it had to do.
Yes.
You're not going to keep trying to invest in a company and you're going on to make losses. However, in the set of startups, like you said, they need room to grow. So it just needs for the government to step in.
Yeah, and
just do what they have to do in terms of accessing funds, helping them out. As we're seeing, bigger companies that would help now stepping away from this because, of course, like you said, they're not trying to count their losses.
But you see, this business that that Centum has divested from,
yes,
only represents 0.5%
okay,
of its total assets.
Right.
It has invested in other startups that have been so far successful.
It was just this
It
one
was just,
isolated
it was
incident.
just this one. And if they were able to do a deep dive, you'll find probably the alcoholic beverage market is very different.
Right.
And you see they were importing.
Yes.
This is a foreign beer that maybe our local taste buds are not used to.
That's true.
Yes.
That's
So how about, because we've seen, for example, there's been EABL, then there is, say, for example, Summit. How about them this time round investing into
something that people are
yes,
more relatable
a local
to?
brewery. Yes,
Agreed.
yes.
Thank you, Ambrose. We'll move on to the next story. Parliament has stopped the release of edible oils worth 10 billion confiscated by a government multi-agency task force a year ago in Mombasa and directed retesting for vitamin A. The National Assembly Trade, Industry and Cooperatives Committee said that imported oils should be retested to confirm whether they are fit for human consumption. The committee said it swung into action after reports that 47 out of the 503 containers of oils had been released to importers following a government waiver. Committee Chairman Kanini Kega, who led committee members on a tour of container freight stations, CFS, wondered what led to change of heart a year after products were impounded. Mr. Kega said that they've stopped the release of containers of edible oils to allow for retesting for vitamin A, and that they're giving KEBS another chance to retest the oils and give a report. If not satisfied, they'll order an independent test. He said the retesting will be fast-tracked and Kenyans will know the outcome within the next 12 days. He further said that MPs were concerned about the food safety in light of an increase in cancer cases. Committee Vice Chairman Corneli Serem argued that the requirement for vitamin A in edible oils came from the Health Ministry, so there must be a concurrency between it and the Ministry of Trade for the products to be released to the market. The committee said the products whose expiry date is May next year should not be released into the market since there was no guarantee they would sell before that date. This comes after the Trade Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya recently dispelled fears that the products imported mainly from Malaysia were not fortified with vitamin A or that they were harmful to consumers. Ambrose, fast sugar, then edible oils. What's going on? What's your take on this whole situation? And then there's also this back and forth with the consumer's life being put at stake. I really want to pick your mind on this.
First of all, I want to declare that I'm not a nutritionist.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
You're speaking from a point of not a nutritionist.
Yes, so I really don't know what vitamin A has got to do with, because for me, I know that when you buy cooking oil,
right,
it should fry your food.
You shouldn't even have to worry, does it have vitamin A?
Yes.
Is it fortified?
Yes.
Right.
But more importantly is that I thought that this testing is normally done at the port of departure.
prior to, before, like...
Yeah, before, if it is coming from Malaysia,
Right.
then it is inspected in Malaysia. There's a report because we have independent and reputable testing companies like SGS.
Yes.
So they should be able to test this, file a report. We should even precede the goods getting here.
Right.
So by the time they're here, the report has been verified and the goods are cleared and they come into the market. Because you see, someone obviously imported this. They used their money.
Yes.
So it means that this is money that has been locked away from the economy.
Yes.
If they're okay. Number two, I mean, testing, how long does it take?
Exactly.
Because
like, how long does it take? A year later, they're saying next 12 days.
Yes. So
how long are we going to wait?
So so I think the agencies in charge of this, specifically KEBS and Ministry of Health, they should work jointly and have these things done in good time. It is very sad that this oil has been sitting in the CFS for over a year.
Right.
It has not been tested. Someone has sunk their money. People are expecting it. You know, once you release these goods to the economy, there's going to be trade. And so there's going to be circulation of money.
Right.
So at times, I wish these people could also look at the economic impact
Exactly.
of their decisions and the delay that they cause.
Right.
Also, I've heard that right now, because cancer is on the rise, everything now is being looked more carefully. But to me, that shouldn't happen that way.
Right.
Because our lives as Kenyans must always be the
primary. They should come first.
Priority.
We're going through enough as it is.
Yes. So it shouldn't be that now, because cancer on the rise, now is when
they're checking edible oils.
You are more vigilant.
Yes.
This should always happen. Because you don't want to tell me, with the kinds of intervention that are there right now from the government and the private sector to fight cancer, if the levels went down, now again people will relax.
Right.
Yes. So I think these guys have to get their acts in order as fast as possible, so that they can allow the traders to do their normal trade. Yeah.
Well, they've told us we'll know within 12 days. So here at Metropole, we'll definitely keep our eye on this story and see what comes up. Now, moving on. Tax collections in the first month of the current financial year ending June 2020 grew at a slower pace compared with the same period last year. The Kenya Revenue Authority netted 107.87 billion in July, a growth of 8.99% over the 98.97 billion collected in the same period last year. The growth was slower compared with 12.74% increase recorded in July 2018. But usually, tax collections are lower at the start of the financial year in July, mainly on little or no development expenditure by the government and delays in kickoff of new taxes pending lawmakers' approvals. And actually, the State Department of Energy was the only one that has so far spent on development by July. Counties have also not been allocated cash following a stalemate over the bill that guides sharing of revenues between the devolved units and national government. In the year to June 2019, the target was moved twice from initial 1.69 trillion to 1.61 trillion in December and eventually to 1.51 trillion in June, but was still missed by 72.66 billion in the end. But looking at the state in our country, the taxman has in the recent years struggled to meet tax revenue targets. This is also what happened yesterday. Ambrose, what do you think is happening? Because some people would argue every single year taxes keep increasing, the government keeps trying to widen the tax bracket, but every single year, KRA keeps saying they're missing their targets. I would like to hear your take on this.
I've said this before and I'll say it again.
Yes.
We normally take KRA at its word, because who oversights KRA? If they tell us we've missed our target by 10 billion, we take it. We've missed our target by 100 billion, we take it. We've missed our target by we've actually surpassed our target by 100 billion, we take it.
Right.
So to me, this issue has always been shrouded in a lot of secrecy, because there's no one who has ever come up, there's no oversight body, there's no anyone who oversights KRA
Right.
actually to say that no, you collected 500 billion and you are reporting 400 billion.
Right.
That's number one. But number two,
So it's checks and balances.
yes. Number two, if it is true, and I want to believe that it is true,
Yes.
though very painful, that we missed our target by 72 billion. What does that mean? Because earlier you just said that during in July there's no spending,
Yeah.
because of
The taxes have not yet been implemented. Counties have not yet been given money. I mean, there are several reasons that have been given.
So I think as a country we need to work on a seamless way to do this.
Right.
That this changeover from this financial year to the next financial year, it is very seamless. We don't have to say that, you see, right now we are still waiting for money to come from Treasury.
Right.
We are still waiting for laws to be passed. So why can't we even do our budget in May, so that by the time the financial year ends in June,
Right.
all the laws have been discussed and dispensed with, they have been passed and all that, so that when the new financial year kicks in, there's a very smooth transition into it, so that we always don't have to lag behind.
Right.
Every
Ambrose, we actually have a clip to this effect, and we're going to play it right now, and maybe you can tell me how you feel about it. Ambrose, from that clip, on the one hand, we have KRA talking about we failed to hit our targets. On the other hand, they're also saying it's because, you know, several reasons. Taxes have not yet fully been implemented. Counties haven't yet started spending. And on the other side, we look at our parliamentarians deliberating over division of revenue. Like, there's no solid solution yet even. I just want you to tell me what's happening.
I think I will stay away from the politics.
Okay.
Because you can see that the difference, the Senate wants 335.
Yeah.
This figure was arrived by CRA, the Commission on Revenue Allocation.
Right.
And they have a formula to it. They don't just sit down and come up with the figure. It's like the ERC, when they tell us fuel is 100 bob this month, next month fuel is 95 or 110. They always have a formula that is published and everyone can see it. And by and large, there has not been any uproar over that formula. So the CRA came with a formula and said that based on the formula that had been agreed, that is in the Constitution, it is 335. National Assembly says it is 316. That's the money available. The difference is only 19 billion.
Right.
19 billion spread over 47 counties is very little money.
Sure.
So what does that tell you?
What does it tell me?
It tells you that the government is broke.
Okay. Simply put.
It tells you that this government is so broke that it cannot raise an additional 20 billion Kenya shillings. That's why, for the first time, Kenya had to go and borrow 75 billion from the World Bank. First time ever, just for budgetary support.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Not for development purposes.
Yes.
So it tells you that the government is broke. And it tells you that we are headed in the wrong direction as a country. Our economy is in the red. So we need to do something to fix it. Because I really don't expect, and remember every time these MPs meet, they are drawing allowances.
Yes.
Sitting allowances.
Yes.
And you know, it's not only them, because they come with their staff,
Yes.
they come with their bodyguards, drivers, they are served tea, all that. We are still spending, still arguing about 20 billion.
Right.
So all we need to do,
so then would you say the government is broke, or even the government has its priorities misplaced? I mean, with that, what you just said, which makes a lot of sense. They meet on a regular basis. They get heavy allowances. On this side, they can't raise 20 billion. They're getting money from World Bank for a supplementary budget. What is it? Is it they're broke? They have misplaced priorities? Is it both? What's happening?
Yeah, we all know that there has been a lot of theft in the government and corruption and all that. So I wish that instead of them going to discuss about how to divide, to haggle about 20 billion, they should be discussing how to grow this economy.
Right.
Because if the economy grew, then there will be more money to the counties. There will be more money to all the sectors, all the ministries, because they're saying now go and reduce the ministries' budgets. The counties are also being told, you also give up something. And it is very sad that we want to develop, but we are still fighting over 20 billion Kenya shillings as a country. Yes.
So if the economy grew, we wouldn't be having any of these conversations.
Yes.
Now moving on. We're at it again. Aren't we just tired of borrowing? This is what you were talking about, Ambrose. Let me just get to the point. Now, our Treasury intends to borrow an extra 500 million shillings from ordinary Kenyans. Yes, from you and me. After it reopened the mobile-based Emakiba infrastructure bond. This will be the third time the government is going for the resale bond that has had mixed results since it's being unveiled in June 2017. Depositors will be paid an interest of 10% on the value of the bond they purchase every year, with the payments being made biannually. This being an infrastructure bond, there'll be tax charges. The bond will be listed on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, with secondary trading being done via mobile phones. By Friday last week, the first Emakiba bond issue was trading at an average yield of 8.21%. The 2-year bond is set to mature on September 23rd this year. There was no trading in the second bond. The bond market has been going through headwinds, with the trading activity in the domestic secondary bond market declining by 37.1% during the week ending August 15, according to Central Bank of Kenya's weekly bulletin. Emakiba is largely a savings vehicle, with the government hoping that its uptake will help mobilize savings among Kenyans as a way of ensuring financial inclusion and cultivate the saving culture in the economy. The Treasury said the government will continue issuing retail products targeting the small retail investors as a way of providing an opportunity to invest and save in building the economy. The bond offers a return of 10% without taxes and can be purchased for as low as 3,000 via the mobile phone. The 10% return is better than commercial banks' saving rate of 4.71%. Treasury in February reopened the mobile-based Emakiba infrastructure bonds targeting 250 million shillings for the security that matures in the next 1.5 years. The initial idea of selling Kenyan government investments over a mobile phone was introduced in 2011 under the leadership of the National Treasury and the CBK. Now, Ambrose, this Emakiba, are they hoping it's going to be third time lucky? Because when Emakiba came into the market, it actually came highly recommended. Like you've said, with the initial 3,000 investment as opposed to others that will give you 50,000. They made it convenient. You can do it on the phone. It really, really came highly recommended. But it doesn't seem to be working as well as the government hopes it would in terms of just bringing the money they need for infrastructure development. What's happening? And what do you think the government should do differently this time round to achieve what they're trying to achieve?
I think this Emakiba is a brilliant idea.
I think so too.
And because you see what happens, we take our money, give it to the banks.
Yes.
Then the banks go and purchase treasury bonds, and then they starve us of the same money that we've given them as credit.
Right.
Because banks invest a lot of money in these treasury bonds. The net effect is there's no money for the private businesses to borrow and grow their businesses. The problem is for the government, I think they need to double up their efforts in publicizing this product.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't know it, a lot of people don't know how it works. And also, the limits are very low. Because you see, you can only do, is it 140,000 right now?
100, yeah, I think it was 130, 140 there.
Yes. So maybe they can relook on ways of increasing these limits,
right,
so that people can trade more. Also, they should also look at ways of that I don't have just to come once.
Yes.
Maybe I can say my target, give me a month, and I say my target that is 100,000. So maybe I go in, say I want to put in 100,000. I'm a small trader. Probably I put 3,000 every day for 1 month. I get to 100,000. So they should be very flexible to bring in a lot of people. This way, all this money we've been giving to the banks and all that, you know, the banks now can at least now start concentrating on their core mandate, of which is to provide credit for businesses to thrive. Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Ambrose. Well, that's all we have for you today on that critical look at what's happening or shaping Kenya's economy. We're now going to take a very, very quick break. But when I come back, I have so much more for you here on Business AM. Don't go anywhere.